corporate America has this nasty little habit of rebranding bad news with a different name and hoping that you as employees will view things through a more positive light. So, for example, we're not having layoffs or reductions in force. We're right-sizing the company. We're not cutting benefits and perks. We're optimizing our budget. There's all sorts of shenanigans that go on along those lines, and there's a new crop of spin that's coming out that, well, you're just going to have to see to believe. Let's break it down. Hey folks, Mark here with The Rational Workforce. Thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate you coming by. You know, one of the most important things about the world of work and about growing as an employee and improving is being able to take feedback, right? Being able to take constructive criticism or insights or even, especially praise when things are going well is so vitally important, not only to companies moving forward and improving, but for individual employees, right? How do you get better? How do you grow? How do you take that next level in your career without getting feedback from your peers and from folks who have been at it for longer than you have? You got to take that in and you've got to be able to absorb it, learn from it, and grow, right? Well, there's a new phenomenon that's going on that is trying to rebrand feedback, and it just sounds so silly and so ridiculous. Would love to hear what you have to say. Let's jump into it. So this comes to us courtesy of the Wall Street Journal. And bosses say feedback is too scary for some workers, so they use this word instead. Employers around the country have good news for workers who dread chats about their performance. Feedback is on the way out. Many companies, executive coaches, and HR professionals are looking to erase the anxiety-inducing word from the corporate lexicon, and some are urging it to be replaced by what they see as a gentler, more constructive word called feed forward. Let's dig in a little more. Feedback too often leaves workers feeling defeated, weighed down by past actions, instead of considering the next steps ahead. But feed forward encourages improvement and development, its proponents say. The old assumptions of feedback and all that word conjures up, I think, puts a chill on performance, said Joe Hirsch, a corporate speaker and author of a book on how to fix feedback. Feed forward is about this forward-looking view of people, performance, and potential. The canceling of feedback has its share of skeptics. It comes as younger generations who prefer a more positive, nurturing environment are accounting for a larger share of the workforce, and companies increasingly focus on performance and efficiency following a pause in reviews during the pandemic. Feedback conversations as they commonly exist today activate a social threat response in the brain, interfering with the ability to think clearly and raising heart rates. Okay, let's just stop there for a second. Couple things. Boy, first of all, the act of giving feedback itself, as we mentioned, is so important. If it causes anxiety, rebranding it as feed forward isn't going to solve the problem. This is the type of unserious corporate nonsense that's going to show up in the next iteration of Office Space or the next Saturday Night Live sketch, and rightfully so. Don't be ridiculous. Don't think that by changing the name of something, you're going to have the people that are receiving it, the people who are ostensibly feeling anxiety about this, suddenly start to warm up and embrace the idea because you went from feedback to feed forward. Just ridiculous. Just stop. Just stop before it starts. Secondly, if the concept of receiving feedback on your work and on your actions triggers anxiety and triggers stress, that's something that's on you to manage your way around. It's not on your boss or your manager or your HR department or your employer to make you feel better about getting feedback. Feedback is vital to career growth. It's vital to advancing and becoming a better person. And it's something that you've got to get used to. Breaking news report, you're not perfect as you are. Shit, I'm far from perfect as a person. Feedback is good. The notion of this kind of constantly remaking the workplace, it's important, right? You've got to evolve. You've got to keep pace with the times. But there are some things that just should be bedrock, and getting feedback about your performance, about how you're doing as an employee, about how your actions impact other people. You've got to be able to receive that. And if there's a level of fear and anxiety that's kind of running rampant in your workplace based on feedback, then I would say the people that are giving the feedback probably need more coaching and direction and guidance than just rebranding it. It just feels like such a cheap kind of random low IQ way to try and deal with a problem, if there even is a problem at all. Another thing that we want to talk about is that, so in the world of HR, and particularly in the wake of the pandemic, and I agree with this trend wholeheartedly, creating a more like empathetic workplace is so important. You know, being able to understand that people have more going on than within the four walls of your business. There's more to them and more that makes them tick than just their job. And work's got to get done, and you need to keep your nose to the grindstone. And there are times when work's got to be a priority. I think that goes without saying. But by the same token, employers have to understand that workers are also parents. They're also spouses. They're also children. I mean, I'm a Gen Xer, so that means that folks in my age group often get caught between raising children of their own and supporting aging parents, right? So there's a lot of pressures that get put on people, and having a more empathetic approach to managing employees, I think, is ultimately a good thing. It creates a more flexible work environment, but it's also going to make people want to stay with your company and not quit. And you'll develop a reputation that's going to make you a magnet for talent, right? Those are all really, really good things. Then you see stuff like this start to pop up, and it kind of makes you wonder. So, adorable little animated graphic here, right? Can AI do empathy even better than human? Companies are trying it. So this article, also from the Wall Street Journal, I'll put the link to both articles in the comments below, talks about all the different ways that generative AI and chatbots and things of that nature are starting to be incorporated into the workplace. And within the context of this article, they're talking about how it's being used, AI is being used to measure empathy, or empathy in a person's voice as they're dealing with like customers, and then having that provide feedback for things like performance reviews, all the way through to using AI tools to help folks from like a mental health perspective, where if they're having a mental health challenge or calling in or trying to work with someone about a specific feeling they're having, instead of having a human being kind of relate to that person, have a well-trained chatbot do that instead. And I think the article kind of buries the lead a little bit here. So this is a really interesting quote. AI may be capable of cognitive empathy, or the ability to recognize and respond to a human based on the data on which it was trained, says Jody Halpern, professor of bioethics at University of California, Berkeley, and an authority on empathy and technology. But that's different from emotional empathy, or the capacity to internalize another person's pain, hope, and suffering and feel genuine concern. Empathy that's most clinically valuable requires that the doctor experience something when they listen to a patient, she says. That's something a bot without feelings or experiences can't do. And then the article goes on to describe the various different ways that AI is kind of making deeper inroads into different parts of the work world, including through human resources, where they talk about using AI to, again, measure empathy in customer support calls and be kind of a frontline interaction tool with employees, and all the different ways that there's going about that. And, you know, again, I saw one of the pundits in our space talk about this last week and how just AI is going to revolutionize the world. And it is. I mean, AI is just going to change things. There's no question about it. But as employers and as humans, we can't on one side preach that we have to be more empathetic, we have to be more sensitive to the needs of people, and we have to be able to have better, more direct interaction with them, and then simultaneously start to develop chatbots that will first interact with humans, so we don't have to as managers or as HR pros. And like, what does that do? Does that create an environment where there's an escalation policy on human emotion, where if the chatbot detects this person is in deep enough distress, then now maybe you get alerted and they're worthy of having a human-to-human interaction? I just push back on it, and maybe it makes me sound like a Luddite. Nothing could be further from the truth. I love technology. I embrace technology. If it's shiny and has an on button, chances are I want it. But, when you talk about things like this in the workplace, when you talk about, an inability to give feedback or to receive feedback, or we have to rebrand feedback. And also we want to create a more empathetic work environment, but here's a robot to talk to, or here's a generative AI chatbot. Like, something just doesn't compute. And the other really important thing to keep in mind about generative AI is that AI and algorithms need to be trained. They need to be trained. They're only as good as the input that's given to them. And the people who are doing the training and the people who are curating the content that's fed into the algorithm or fed into the AI can very well carry their own biases, their own prejudices, their own baggage can just get pumped into the generative AI chatbot. And now you're carrying these things over at scale. And we've been talking about this for years and years and years in the HR and in the recruiting space. The invasion of AI and machine learning is not anything particularly new in the tech sector. But it definitely has broader appeal now. It's definitely more accessible and more affordable now. So you're going to see more and more organizations using it. And I just think that we're wading into very dangerous territory when we put these tools on the front line to interact with people at the same time we're trying to tell people that they mean more to us than ever in the workplace. It's very discordant. It's very discordant. And I think that we have to proceed with extreme caution, and we have to make sure that we're level setting and setting expectations appropriately with employees so they understand if they're first going to be interacting with the chatbot, boy, you got to make that crystal clear. Otherwise, the backfire could be enormous. But that's what I think. Let's hear what you think. I'd love for you to take a few minutes, leave a note in the comments below. Tell me where your head is at. Have you had interactions with chatbots in the workplace? Has it helped? Has it hurt? Am I off base here? I would love to hear what you think. Would also love for you to ring the bell, click subscribe, click like, do all the things that help the channel to grow. The more feedback we get from you, the more the channel grows, the more energy we'll be able to dedicate to it. And I'm having a blast. So listen, I appreciate you stopping by. If it's your first visit, make sure you subscribe and come back again. If you're a returning visitor, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and we will catch you on the next one. Have a good one, folks.